This is Rob Ryder on Monday, July 27th, 2020. National voter registration, which is in Title 52 of the United States Code at Chapter 205. And hey, this is an emergency transmission because based on this act, warning, you likely filled out the wrong voter registration application. We'll get into more of that in just a second, but if you wanted to email me about this or anything else, my email address is courtofrecord@aol.com, courtofrecord@aol.com. If you're just leaving comments in the comment section of the video or WordPress or whatever, I can't get back to those and answer that stuff. Just too much to do, right? But if you send me something to Court of Record, much better chance that I would be able to respond. And I'm Staff Sergeant Robert Allen Retluski. Rob Ryder's my avatar. And as it turned out, I was doing a video. I had all this in my head. I was going to do this video on things I had learned about the Defense Finance Administration Services, DFAS, where I had put in a complaint that I didn't have any separation orders that I could find, and I've never been able to find, and I don't really know anybody that ever has them, into the DFAS. And I got a call last Wednesday, and the guy called me Staff Sergeant Robert Allen Retluski, and he confirmed that they don't have, or they have not yet found, separation orders for Staff Sergeant Robert Allen Retluski ever being released from the military, even though it would look like I was released back in 1988. And I should have gotten separation pay based on the code that I have, right? And so I had all this in my mind. Oh, I'm going to do this great video. Got all this information coming. I'm going to contact the guy back and get some more information. And he's going to get me some more information, da-da-da-da. Well, that was until Rosita dropped this on me when she told me about the National Voter Registration Act, 52 U.S.C. Chapter 205. And after looking at it for about 5 minutes, I said, I'm going to have to just put off the military stuff for a minute and put this out because, we're less than 100 days from the election now. So this is getting to be very, very important. But so the gist of it is that in Michigan, you would normally fill out a state of Michigan voter registration application. And now when I look at it, it's like, well, that doesn't say national voter registration. It says state of Michigan voter registration application. And this form here, right, that you download online and fill out to fill in the boxes and do whatever it says, well, this form does not have the statements on it that's required by this act. Right? So, in case I forget, all of this can be found in if you go to uscode.house.gov and then go to download, right? Go down here to Title 52, voting and elections. You can download a whole PDF of the whole thing. You can now also find a way to just take out the one section like I did. But, as I was reading it, I found out, well, this originally started out in Title 42, which is public health and welfare, which is funny all by itself because public health and welfare is really the law they're using to, claim that we have this coronavirus pandemic and do quarantines and so forth, right? That's all public health law stuff. It's almost like being the sheriff. It's, you can warrantless arrest. Just go ahead and do it because the guy's got the authority to do it. So there's some scheming going on here, that's for sure. But the great thing is, well, here's the law. We can look at it and see what it says, and we'll just see if they're complying with it. So the particular section is Chapter 205, which is only 11 pages long. It's not that long of a section. But it has to do with this National Voter Registration Act of 1993. And it has all these different sections in. And, this is the one most of us would be familiar with, is simultaneous application for voter registration and application for motor vehicle driver's license. Right? So you go to the DMV to get your driver's license and you register at the same time. Except when you go there, this is the form they give you, right? It has to do with the state of Michigan voter registration, not national voter registration application, which according to the law, they're supposed to be. And that's what we're going to look at right now. So, but maybe the easiest way to start is just with a Supreme Court case from 2013. And this is the syllabus between the Arizona and International Tribal Council of Arizona Incorporated, in which they said the National Voter Registration Act of 1993 requires states to accept and use a uniform federal form to register voters for federal elections. That federal form, developed by the Federal Election Assistance Commission, requires only that an applicant aver under penalty of perjury that he is a citizen. What? A citizen of the United States, right? Arizona law, however, requires voter registration officials to reject any application for registration, including a federal form that is not accompanied by documentary evidence of citizenship. So, this has been my contention for the longest time. We're not in the United States, and this is how this works. They keep us out of the nation of the United States. One nation under God, that's the United States. Right? That's the citizen, lowercase citizens of the United States are protected under the Constitution. But we're not in the United States, right? Because we got errors in our paperwork. And it's done as part of a scheme to keep us from being under the Constitution. Respondents of a group of individual Arizona residents and a group of nonprofit organizations sought to enjoin the Arizona law. Ultimately, the district court granted Arizona summary judgment on respondents' claim that NVRA pre-exempts Arizona requirements. The Ninth Circuit affirmed, but reversed, blah, blah, blah. Arizona evidence of citizenship requirements as applied to federal form applicants is preempted by the NVRA's mandate that states accept and use federal forms. So basically, they can't do that. They can't not take your federal form at the state. So, the point is, well, there's this other form, this federal form. It's not the same as the state of Michigan voter registration application. There's some other form we're supposed to fill out to register as a national for voting. And so when we get into the act a little bit more, it shows all these other places other than the DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles, or similar entity, where you can do this at. And one of them is recruiter station, right? Military recruiters station, which I found quite interesting. Arizona appeals the presumption against preemption invoked by the Court Supremacy Clause cases as an opposite. The power election clause confers is none other than the power to pre-exempt. Because Congress, when it acts under the clause, is always on notice that its legislation will display some element of pre-existing legal regime erected by the states, the reasonable assumption is that the text of the election clause legislation accurately communicates the scope of Congress's pre-exemptive intent. Nothing less why the NRVA forbids states to demand that an applicant submit additional information beyond that required by the federal form. It does not preclude the states from denying registration based on the information in their possession establishing the applicant's eligibility. So, in other words, right, there's supposed to be a form where you're just going to, under penalty of perjury, say you're a citizen of the United States. And because Congress can pre-exempt any requirement of the state that you produce evidence, documentary evidence of it, other than you just saying it, right? You can do it. And now if the state has any objection, well, then they can file a complaint. But unless they do, they agreed, right? So this is the wonderful thing. You say it, and now the state has to disagree in a court proceeding that you're not a citizen of the United States. But if they don't do that, then they've agreed that you are. And so finding this national federal form, which probably isn't its proper name, right? They say it's kind of a colloquial name they've given to this thing. But it's a federal form. It's for federal elections. It has nothing to do with the state, just federal, right? As a national. It would raise serious constitutional doubts if a federal statute precluded the state from obtaining information necessary to enforce its voter qualification. The NVRA can be read to avoid such a conflict, however, this section, again, now they're talking about it being in Title 42, right? 42 USC 1973 GG 7B1, right? But now it's in Title 52. So if you were to be quoting this stuff, I don't know if you quoted as Title 42 or Title 52. I'm just saying, right, that it showed up in one and got moved to another. Yeah, but this section permits the EAC to include on the federal form information necessary to enable the appropriate state elections official to assess the eligibility of the applicant. The NVRA permits a state to request the EAC to include statement-specific instructions on the federal form. See 42 USC 1973 GG 7A2. That's, all come out of the same area, which is now Title 52. Used to be 42. Now it's 52. And a state may challenge the EAC's rejection of that request or failure in a suit under Administration Procedures Act. So, they have to take your paperwork. If they don't agree, they have to take it to the EAC under the Administrative Procedures Act. All we need to do is fill out the damn form. So let's look at this now, this section. So again, this is in Title 52, USC, Chapter 205. The Congress finds that the rights of lowercase citizens of the United States to vote is a fundamental right. Now, if you go to the 14th Amendment, it says lowercase citizens of the United States, right, are the ones that are protected by equal protection under the laws, right? Because if you're not a lowercase citizen of the United States, you're not protected by the Constitution. So there you are. This is how a national lowercase citizen of the United States gets to vote. To make it possible for federal, state, and local governments to implement this chapter in a manner that enhances the participation of eligible citizens as voters in election for election office, or for federal office. So not just at the DMV or down at the township hall or whatever. No, the federal government, the state government, local governments can all implement this chapter. This section was formerly classified in the Public Health and Welfare section of Title 42. Definitions, elections, federal office, motor vehicle driver's license, the state, meaning the state of the United States, and the District of Columbia, right? So just the standard definitions. Non-applicability to certain states. This chapter does not apply to a state described in either or both of the following paragraphs. A state in which, under the law, it is in effect continuously on August 1st, 1994, there is no voter registration requirement for any voter in the state with respect to an election for federal office. Right? I don't know if Michigan has that or not, right? Do we have a law that says you don't have to register to vote in the state with respect to a federal office? And the federal offices, and they're talking about the president, the vice president, senators, and congressmen, like 500 and some odd federal offices that are elected. All voters in the state may register to vote at the polling place at the time of voting in a general election for federal office. Right? So if there's, so here's some reasons they wouldn't have to have this form if they have these laws in place. Now, I haven't had a chance to go through and really dissect all these laws yet, but right now I'm more interested in saying, well, where's this federal form? I'd like to see one. Right? But here's simultaneous application for voter registration, application for motor vehicle driver's license, which, by and large, this is what we would think we were doing when we went down to fill out your driver's license or fill out a form like this. Right? But it says State of Michigan voter registration application. And it doesn't have on it this information that this act is going to be talking about. So this can't be what they're talking about I'm supposed to use. And this says I'm a United States citizen. It doesn't say citizen of the United States. That always bothers me when they put it backwards, or they put U.S.citizen. Like up here, if you are not a U.S.citizen, don't complete this form. Well, I'm not a U.S.citizen. So yes, I should not fill out this form. I'm a citizen of the United States. And yeah, it makes a difference. I'm not a grammar expert, but I know that you put words in different orders, they mean different things. Each state shall include a voter registration application form for elections for federal office as part of an application for a state motor vehicle driver's license. The voter registration application portion of the application for a state motor vehicle driver's license may not require any information that duplicates information required in the state driver's license portion, blah, 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 may require only a minimum amount of information necessary to prevent duplicate voter registration and enable the state election officials to assess the eligibility of the applicant and to administer voter registration and other parts of the election process. Shall include a statement that the state states each eligibility requirement, including citizenship, contains an attestation that the applicant meets such requirement and requires a signature of an applicant under penalty of perjury. Shall include in print that is identical to that used to the attestation portion of the application. All right, so you got this attestation here. So in the same print, identical to that used for the attestation portion of the application, it has to say these things. The information required in section 20507, which is a little bit further down in this act, and a statement that if an applicant declines to register to vote, the fact that the applicant has declined to register will remain confidential and will be used only for voter registration purposes. Well, that's not on the form I just showed you. And there's no statement that says that if an applicant does register to vote, the office at which the applicant submits a voter registration application will remain confidential and will be used only for voter registration purposes. All right, these two statements are supposed to be on whatever form they end up, pooping out to say, here's the form to fill out that complies with the National Registration Act. Well, right, and so this is in section 20504. That's a good one to remember. And say, well, if it doesn't have these statements on here in D, then it's not the right form. So maybe we just need to ask them for the other form. I don't know what the deal is, but they're not just giving you the proper form. They're giving you here a state of Michigan form instead of a national form. You got change address, mail registration. Each state shall accept and use the mail voter registration application form prescribed by the Federal Election Commission pursuant to another section further down in this act, of the title for the registration of voters in elections for federal office. Now, they talk about this Federal Election Commission, but when you Google that and go to the website, it's u.s. Federal Election Commission. So I don't think that that's even the proper election commission. Right? Or is hiding behind the veil of the u.s. I mean, u.s. is a military abbreviation of the United States. I understand that. Right? That if you go to the style manual, it'll have u.s. and it'll say it's abbreviation of the United States. Well, that's good, but that's a military jurisdiction. So, is it the same as saying citizen of the United States? I don't think so, because they use citizen of the United States in other parts. So it's like, well, use citizen of the United States. I'm just saying that, that if you were to go to the website for the Federal Election Commission and download their mail registration form, which I haven't done yet, the chances are it's not going to be correct either. So I don't want to do the mail yet. But come to find out, now this is where it gets interesting. We have these voter registration agencies. Each state shall designate agencies for the registration of voters in elections for federal office. Each state shall designate as voter registration agencies all offices in the state that provide public assistance, and all offices in the state that provide state-funded programs primarily engaged in providing services to persons with disabilities. Well, this is the health department. right? It's the state health department and the county health department. Those are agencies that do these things, right? So I'm saying that your state health department, let me look up Michigan's real quick. I don't have it pulled up, but give me just a second. Okay, so if I Google Michigan Public Assistance, right, MDHHS, assistance programs. All right, you got cash assistance, special health care services, food assistance. Right, so it's okay. Well, this is the place that has to do it then. That's, I don't say how they can say, well, that doesn't, that doesn't comply with the act, right? So the MSDHHS, or MDHHS, excuse me, MDHHS, Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, which is part of the, National Health and Human Services, United States Health and Human Services, whose local office is the Kent County Health Department, is an entity that you can go to for voter registration. In addition to voter registration agencies designated under chapter or paragraph 2, each state shall designate other offices within the state as voter registration agencies. Voter registration agencies designated under subparagraph A may include state and local government offices such as public libraries, public schools, office of city and county clerks, including marriage license bureaus. Keep that in mind. Fishing and hunting license bureaus. All right, that's the Department of Natural Resources. Government revenue offices, unemployment compensation offices, and offices not designated in 2B that provide services to persons with disabilities. All right, shall designate. So they have to have these other places designated. Federal and non-governmental offices with an agreement of such offices. At each voter registration agency, the following services shall be made available. Distribution of mail voter registration application forms in accordance with paragraph 6. Assistance to applicants in completing voter registration application forms, unless the applicant refuses such assistance. And acceptance of completed voter registration application forms for transmittal to the appropriate state election official. So there must be more than just the mail voter one. There must be one you can fill out with them and leave with them. Right? So that's the one I want. Okay, I don't want to do the mail one. I want you to help me fill the form out. And it gets better. If a voter registration agency designated under paragraph 2B provides services to persons with disability at the person's home, the agency shall provide the services prescribed in subparagraph B at the person's home. Right? So I'm going to say, hey, come to my house and do it. Now, I don't have that yet, but, there are people who get these services at their home, so they could have them come out and fill out the damn paperwork for them. A person who provides services described in paragraph 4 shall not seek to influence an applicant's political preference or party registration, display any such political preference or party allegiance, make any statement to the applicant or to take action, purpose, or effect of which is to discourage the applicant from registering to vote. So they can't tell you can't do it. This is the wonderful thing. They can't make any statement other than come on down and do it. Or we'll be there to take care of it. Right? If they've been tasked with doing it, they can't make a statement to an applicant or take any action, that purpose or effect of which is to discourage the applicant from registering to vote. Or make any statement to the applicant or take any action, the purpose or effect of which is to lead the applicant to believe that a decision to register or not to register has any bearing on the availability of services or benefits. Voter registration agency, that is an office that provides services or assistance in addition to conducting voter registration, shall distribute with each application for such service or assistance, and with each recertification, renewal, or change of address form relating to such service or assistance, the mail voter registration application form described in section 20508, a little bit lower down yet, of this title, including a statement that specifies each eligible requirement, contains an attestation that the applicant meets each such requirement, and requires the signature of the applicant under penalty of perjury, or the office's own form if it is equivalent to the form described in section 20508. And the only way to know is, well, look at the form and compare it to the law. So we need to get the form that one of these places has and compare it to the law, make sure it's the right one. But let's keep going. Unless the applicant in writing declines to register to vote, which we don't want to do. Say, no, I'm not declining to register to vote. Put it in writing that you're not declining to register to vote. Provide a form that includes the question, if you are not registered to vote where you live now, would you like to apply to register to vote here today? If the agency provides public assistance, the statement applying to register or declining to register to vote will not affect the amount of assistance that will be provided by this agency. So this is how you can tell if you got the right form, right? Because it's got to have these little identifiers on there, these statements. Boxes for the applicant to check to indicate whether the applicant would like to register or decline to register to vote. Failure to check either box being deemed to constitute a declination to register for purposes of subparagraph C, together with the statement in close proximity to the boxes and in the prominent type. If you do not check either box, you will be considered to have declined or decided not to register to vote at this time. Right? It's got to have that statement on it. This is the wonderful thing. This has got all these little telltales that you look for to make sure it's the proper form. The statement, if you would like help filling out this voter registration application form, we will help you. The decision whether to seek or accept help is yours. You may fill out this application form in private. It's got to have it written on there. The statement, if you believe that someone has interfered with your right to register or to decline to register to vote, your right to privacy in deciding whether to register or in applying to register to vote, or your right to choose your own political party or other political preferences, you may file a complaint with, it's got to have it filled out. The blank being filled by the name, address, telephone number of the appropriate official to whom such complaint should be addressed. That's powerful stuff. And, so, brothers and sisters, none of that's on this fucking form right here. Right? There ain't a bit of that on this form, so this ain't the right form to fill out. Don't be filling out the state of Michigan voter registration application. Fill out the national voter registration application. Okay, so let's continue on. Provide each applicant who does not decline to register to vote the same degree of assistance with regard to the completion of the registration application form as is provided by the office with regard to the completion of its own forms, unless the applicant refuses such assistance. Just don't refuse it. Ask for it by name. Ask for it by law. Ask for it by section 52, United States Code 20506, voter registration agencies. I'm asking for your help. No information relating to declination to register to vote may be used for purposes other than voter registration. Federal government and private sector cooperation. All departments, agencies, and other entities of the executive branch of the federal government shall, to the greatest extent practicable, cooperate with states in carrying out subsection A, and all non-governmental entities are encouraged to do so. C, Armed Forces Recruitment Office. Each state and the Secretary of Defense shall jointly develop and implement procedures for persons to apply to register to vote at recruitment offices of the Armed Forces of the United States. Right? This way you just bypass the freaking local government, the state government, and you go right to the military. A recruitment office of the Armed Forces of the United States shall be considered to be a voter registration agency designated under Section A2 for the purposes of this chapter. And I meant to contact mine down here in Greenville today, but they got behind me, and I'll be doing it tomorrow, right? Say, hey, I want to come down and do this. Find out what they know about it. But you can read it. Set it right there. All right, each recruitment office of the Armed Forces of the United States shall be considered to be a voter registration agency designated under subsection A2 for the purposes of this chapter. What do we got here? This is an executive order from Slick Willie, number 12926, implementation of the National Voter Registration Act 1993 by authority vested in me as president by the Constitution and laws of the United States of America, including Section 301 of Title III United States Code. And in order to ensure, as required by Section 7B of the National Voter Registration Act 1993, which would be the 42 U.S.C., now 52 U.S.C., the Act, the department agencies and other entities of the executive branch of the federal government cooperate with states in carrying out the Act's requirements. It is hereby ordered as follows. To the greatest extent practical, departments, agencies, and other entities of the executive branch of the federal government that provide, in whole or in part, funding, grants, or assistance, funding, right, federal funding, or with respect to administration of any program for public assistance, services to persons with disabilities within the meaning of Section 7A of this Act shall provide to state agencies administering any such program guidance for the implementation of the requirements of subsection 7A, subsection 7 of the Act, including guidance for the use and distribution of voter registration forms with an S, right? So there's more than one style of form in connection with the application for service. Armed Forces Recruitment Offices, the Secretary of Defense is directed, right? This is an order to the Secretary of Defense, is directed to work with the appropriate state election authorities in each state to develop procedures for persons to apply to register to vote at Armed Forces Recruitment Offices as required by Section 7C of this Act. To the great extent practicable, departments, agencies, and other entities of the executive branch of the federal government, if requested, to be designated as a voter registration agency pursuant to another section, shall agree to such designation if agreement is consistent with the department, agencies, or entities' legal authority and availability of funds, and ensure that all of its offices that are located in the state will have available to the public at least one of the national voter registration forms that are required under the Act to be available in that state. Right? One of the national voter registration forms. So they're talking about this mail-in form, right? But whatever it is, they got to have it. They have to have a form that complies with this law. Requirements with respect to administration of voter registration. In general, in the administration of voter registration for elections for federal office, each state shall ensure that any eligible applicant is registered to vote in an election. It goes through the different ways. Obviously, I can't read all this, or you people quit listening to me. You can read it yourself. Confirmation of voter registration. Any state program or activity to protect the integrity of the electoral process by ensuring the maintenance of an accurate and current voter registration roll for election for federal office, right? Again, this is all federal office. It got nothing to do with state or local, just federal office. Shall be uniform, non-discriminatory, and in compliance with the Voter Rights Act of 1965. Shall not result in a removal of a name of any person from the official list of voters registered to vote in an election for the federal office by reason of the person's failure to vote, except that nothing in this paragraph may be construed to prohibit a state from using the procedures described in subsection C and D to remove an individual from an official list of eligible voters if the individual has not either notified the applicable registrar in person or in writing, of the respond during the period described in subsection B, so paragraph B, to the notice sent by the applicable register, then B has not voted or appeared to vote in 2 or more consecutive general elections for federal office. I'm beginning to wonder if you even go to the same place that most people believe they go to vote. I think we go to the school or something, right? That's really where we're supposed to be voting, is at the school districts, not down at the township hall or the thing they call the township hall, because in that venue, it's not in the United States. It's in the United States of America, which is King George's venue. Voter removal programs, removal of names from voting rolls. The state shall not remove the name of registrant from official list of eligible voters in elections for federal office on the ground that the registrant has changed residence unless the registrant, and it gives some more reasons. So forgetting all the ways they can take you off, first we got to get our name on the list. Procedure for voting following failure to return the card. So, okay. A notice is described in this paragraph. It is postage prepaid and pre-addressed return card sent by forwarded mail on which the registrant may state his or her current address together with notice to the following effect. Right, so after you register, you're supposed to get a notice that shows that you've been registered. Right, but if you don't get the card, well, you can still, there's a procedure for voting anyways. The registrant who has moved from an address in the area covered by the polling place to an address in the same area shall, notwithstanding the failure to notify the registrar of the change of address prior to the date of the election, be permitted to vote in that polling place upon oral or written affirmation that the registrant, by the registrant of a change of address before an election official at the polling place. Now, this has to do with, them making you put your name backwards on stuff. In fact, I have to show you that too. Hang on a second. Okay, so here's the state of Michigan voter registration application that you can find online. But I did one that looks like this, right? Michigan change of address voter registration, which you can find online, right? But when you fill this document out, now of course, starting at the beginning, I don't have a middle name. I have a given name. My name's Robert Allen. Right? That's my given name, and my last name is Ritluski. I don't have a middle name, therefore I can never have a middle initial. Anytime I see first name, middle initial, last name, I just put Robert Allen first name box, go right past middle initial or middle name, and go to my last name. Right? So, but if you look on this thing, your residence address, they want you to put street and number. Mailing address, street and number. Well, that would be, 14 Mile Road Northeast. That's the street. And then the number. And then the P.O. box. And so this unit 55 for me, it's because the last 2 digits of my house number are 55. This is all part of the 12-digit zip code they have for you and so forth. But if you notice, I use this address here, 14 Mile Road 1300, which isn't the same as my mailing address. Because really, this is the address of for Oakfield Township. If I go to Oakfield Township, I should have done this already too. You know how it is. All right, Oakfield Township, Michigan. And I look at the website. It will tell me that... all right, Oakfield Township, here's the address. 1314 Mile Road, Rockford, Michigan. Okay, well, Oakfield Township is my place. And so my place's address is 1314 Mile Road, Rockford, Michigan, 49341. Except on the form, they want you to put the damn thing backwards. All right, so 1400 Mile Road, 10300. So that's why I did it that way. Now, I'm going to have to go and read this one to see if this has those statements in there. right? So we'll find out if this is legit shit or not. But this one here, State of Michigan. See, this one says State of Michigan voter registration. And this one here says Michigan change of address or Michigan voter registration. But neither of them say national voter registration. Okay, so back to the act. Where are we at anyway? So this is Federal Coordination Regulations. The Federal Election Assistance Commission, in consultation with the Chief Election Officer of the state, shall prescribe such regulations as are necessary to carry out this paragraph, and in consultation with the Chief Election Officer of the state, shall develop a mail voter registration application form for elections for federal office. Well, that's the one I want to see. And I don't think it's the one that I did. I don't believe it's this one. And I don't believe it's this one, the one that I didn't do. Right? There's still another form style someplace. And that's what we're looking for, right? These sneaky bastards. That's all this is. This is, the devil is in the details. And he mucks up the details and you get left off a list. You just been disenfranchised. Designation of a chief state election official. Each state shall designate a state officer or employee as the chief state election official to be responsible for coordination of state responsibilities under this chapter. I'll show you in a second who I think that is. And then civil enforcement and private right of action, right? The Attorney General may bring civil action in an appropriate district court for such declaratory injunctive relief as necessary to carry out this chapter. And private action. So, there you are. Let me show you these last couple of pieces real quick, and we'll be done with this, because that's all I had to show you today is, hey, we need to go find this other stuff and see if it's different and then do something with it. And it would be much easier if there were, more than myself and Rosita doing it. So I told Rosita, I'll just do a quick video and, get the rest of the troops out there looking for answers. Okay, hang on a second. Okay, so again, if you Google Election Assistance Commission, you'll find this eac.gov, which says U.S. or says US. Doesn't say U.S. That's here it says U.S. Election Assistance Commission. Right, these are the people that are supposed to help the state make the forms they're supposed to use for the National Voter Registration Act for federal elections. Now, I think the way that you find out, who your state person is that's involved in that, you can go down here and if they were going to be asking for money, right, under this CARES Act that they had for the EAC, had for these different places, all these, all of them have a letter that they wrote asking for money. And in these letters, somewhere in here, it's going to give a point of contact you to talk to. All right, contact my chief of staff. Right, so in this case, he's responsible. In my case, in Michigan, right, it said, who was it here? Right, if you have any questions about this request, please contact Jonathan Brader, Director of Elections. Well, then he must be the one that's responsible. So this is the person, working with the Election Assistance Commission to make up the national form that we're supposed to use for mail-in. Okay, and then on top of that, then, the Department of Justice, they have their own division, right, that it's going to be under the Civil Rights Division for the National Voter Registration Act. And so it goes into more detail about this, that, and the other thing, and, well, more stuff to read. So I'll try to do a more informative video on the next one, but I'm hoping to get some input from y'all to see what you can find out about this act and how it's being implemented in your state or at the, This is the one that gets me. Where did it say that? At the freaking Armed Forces Recruitment Office. Right, Armed Forces Recruitment Offices. Each state and Secretary of Defense shall jointly develop and implement procedures for persons to apply to register to vote at recruitment offices of the Armed Forces of the United States. A recruitment office of the Armed Forces of the United States shall be considered to be a voter registration agency designated under subsection A2 for all purposes of this chapter. It's already been decided, right? It's a place you can register to vote. It's just we're trying to vote under the national voter registration, right? We're a national. I don't want to do it as a state of Michigan voter registration or a Michigan voter registration. I want to do it as a national voter registration. So we'll see where this leads. And well, right now you know as much as I do. We'll see what happens next. I did send a letter out, so let me look at that real quick and share those. So hang on a second. All right, because I read that letter, I had this guy's name on there, so I said, well, I'll contact Jonathan, because they gave me his email address. So, Mr. Brader. And a letter to the U.S. Election Assistance Commission, Jocelyn Benson, Secretary of State, identified you as the agent of the state of Michigan for federal elections. I am looking for a voter registration for election of federal office form or forms that satisfy the mandate of the National Voter Registration Act 1993. The state of Michigan voter registration application is not compliant with the National Voter Registration Act 1993. It is not the federal form mandated by law. See attachment. So I sent him a copy of the voter registration for the state of Michigan. Please send me copies of all styles of the federal form available for use in Michigan, and do so as soon as possible. Officially submitted, Staff Sergeant Robert Allen Ratluski, because I was just told they can't find a separation order for me, so I get to put SSG before my name again. I am in the Army. Care of Robert Allen Ratluski, that's my business, at 10955 14 Mile Road Northeast, Rockford, Michigan, 49341. Right, that's the address that was given to me by the IRS, saying that's the physical address of my business. Okay, I did that one, and, well, I did a couple other ones. What else did I do? I sent one to the Election Commission. We might as well just look at all of them. This only takes a minute. What else you got to do? All right, if you're not interested, just stop watching. All right, so then I contacted the U.S. Election Commission Assistance, U.S. Election Assistance Commission, right? That was this place right here. And said, I have attached the state of Michigan voter registration application. This form does not contain the statements required by federal law, and in no way can it be considered a federal form mail-in application for Michigan. The application is not in compliance with 52 U.S.C. Chapter 205, National Voter Registration, and it does not contain the contents of mail voter registration form as mandated by 20508, Federal Coordination and Regulation. Right? That's what these people are supposed to do. They were supposed to help make the mail-in registration form for the National Voter Registration Act. Right? So that's what I want to see. So I just put it in. Here's what it all says. Please provide me the federal form that the Election Assistance Commission, in consultation with the chief election officers of the states, created for citizens of the United States to use when registering for federal elections. Officially submitted. And because I'm already poking at the Kent County Health Department anyways for other things that's going on, ask them too. Notice to agent is notice to principal. Agent under 52 U.S.C. 20506, the federal government identifies the Kent County Health Department as a voter registration agency. In accordance with this law, I request assistance in completing the voter registration application form. Please provide me by email a copy of the voter registration application form for my inspection and schedule to send someone to my home to help me fill it out. Remember, it said that they could send somebody out to help you fill it out. You don't even need to go in. Have them come to your house and do it. Okay, so that's, the fun I've had today. And this is a big deal, though, people. If you want to vote for the president and you want to vote for Trump, you need to do this. Because the shit you're doing, you're not going to be voting for Trump. You're going to be voting into a system that has an electoral college of people that are going to go vote for you. Right? But but I don't even know if your vote's being counted when you go to this other fictitious system they have under the state of Michigan voter registration, right? Because it's not the national voter registration. And if you want to vote in federal elections, then you need to be a frickin' national, registered as a national voter. Alrighty, y'all have a great day.